Welcome to the True You Summit. I'm Carrie Rubin, your summit host and Chief Mom Officer at the Modern Mom Society. I'm excited to bring you this summit to help you get the tools you need to live an authentic and joyful mom life that's aligned to what your body, soul, and mind desires. I hope you enjoyed this limited time free interview with one of the 15 experts that are here to discuss how you can get closer to your true you. Each day of the summit, we will explore 5 different areas of your life where you can improve your connection to your true you as a busy mom. Parenting, mom life, authenticity, spirituality, and mind and body. You'll have 24 hours free access to listen to the 3 experts discussing the topic of the day. Otherwise, you can purchase lifetime access to these life-changing series of interviews. There are 2 different packages available. The basic package, which includes all 15 interviews in MP3 format, can be purchased for $29, or the deluxe package, which includes all 15 interviews in audio, video, and transcript format, so you can get this great information whichever way you prefer. Plus, the deluxe package also includes bonus PDFs. One is the How to Connect to Your True You guide. It highlights the ways that the experts shared in their interview as to how they personally connect to their true selves, as well as the common ideas and themes throughout. So if you're new to connecting to your true you, or you're out of practice, you can start trying on these different ways of getting in tune with your inner wisdom, intuition, and true self right away. The second bonus PDF is Key Takeaways from the Summit. As I was recording all of these interviews, I noticed common themes and threads throughout. And this bonus document highlights these keys, so you'll be sure to get the most important ideas and begin to make shifts towards a happier, joyful, more aligned, and more fulfilled mom life today. The $29 and $59 prices for the basic and deluxe packages are good now through the end of the summit on May 10th. After that, the prices will go up to $59 and $89 respectively. So if you think you're going to miss any of these great interviews, or you'll know you want to have lifetime access to them, be sure to grab your True You Summit package upgrade today. Here's today's interview. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, and welcome to the True You Summit presented by the Modern Mom Society. I'm Carrie Rubin, your summit host and Chief Mom Officer at the Modern Mom Society. I'm excited to bring you this summit to help you get the tools you need to live an authentic and joyful mom life that is aligned to what your body, soul, and mind desires. Today's expert is Sarah Hembree. Sarah is an innovative organizational strategist, speaker, coach, and founder of Nest Happy. She helps time-strapped moms and small business owners create time and space for everyone to thrive. Sarah has an uncanny ability to translate complicated concepts into genuine, practical, relatable steps that are easy to follow and achieve overall lasting transformation in her clients' lives. She has experience growing up and around hoarders, and while very organized, she's not a minimalist, but a practical mom of almost 3 boys. In the wake of Marie Kondo's book and popular show on Netflix, along with my own struggle with stuff, even despite being a fairly organized person and having been a professional organizer for a while, I knew I wanted to have someone on the summit to discuss how clutter affects your true you, and Sarah is clearly a pro in this arena. We discuss why moms struggle with stuff so much and how to get a handle on it. Sarah gives some great examples of how to get started with decluttering and gives some specific tips around toys and artwork in particular, which I know can be troublesome areas for us moms. I hope we spark some joy for you in your relationship with your stuff. Here's the interview. Welcome to the True You Summit, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about organization because a little known fact is my first entrepreneurial venture was as a professional organizer, and organizing has always been one of my things, but when I became a mom, that kind of all went to hell. So I'm curious if you could share your story of how you got into this work.
Sure. Great question. And I think I'll give you not the long-winded or not the, I'll give you like the 3-minute,
perfect,
to 5-minute version. So I actually come from a family of hoarders. And
no kidding.
Growing up, I was always very organized, but I think I'm a messy person. Mm-hmm. So I find you're either very, organized and detail oriented and knowing where everything is, or you're not just by nature. but then there's also the other side of it where you're messy or like a neat person. And I have a background in, like you yourself as well, like in biotech, and I studied biomedical engineering and had a long career in that. And then once I had kids, I had 2 huge aha moments that really hit the nail on the head, basically, for me, just in terms of the volume of stuff that kids come with. And
oh, God, it's so much.
Yes, and how it just exacerbates, kind of your nature or just what you have going on in your home. And we were actually living in a loft with a baby, and then we had another one. So we were living in a loft with 2 kids when I had these huge aha moments with stuff and the sheer volume of it and the feeling of, overwhelm and all that stuff. And so the first aha moment came with the toys that,
there's so many.
Especially, when that happened to me, my second one was about 8 months, like he was pulling up, and then my older one was probably 3 at that point. And when you go through that many birthdays and Christmases, you just amass.
Yes, it's a lot.
And so that was my first aha moment when I caught myself stopping taking pictures of my kids because I was so embarrassed with the background, like with all the mess. And,
wow.
I didn't want to have people over, even for like a casual play date. So that was a huge aha for me. And cleared out the room and realized how much better it was and how much better the kids played with toys when there was less around. And the other aha moment was when I did clear the room and we came home with a package of paper towels, and they just played with the package for, I think, an hour and a half.
Wow.
So it just really made me realize, that stuff really does affect not only your own mental sanity, but the way your kids are playing and developing. So I took an opportunity when I was on maternity leave with my second one, when my company decided to shut down, just to take some breathing space and figure out my next move. And that's when I had these aha moments. And that's when Marie Kondo's book came out. Decluttering was all the rage. And it just, some of her philosophies really connected with me right away. And I quickly came up with my own methods, somewhat based on hers, and just posted in some moms groups asking, if anyone else needed help doing this. And within 3 hours, I think I got 25 responses of people, begging me to come over because they're pregnant or moving or, whatever. And I just jumped right in and started helping other families transforming their lives. And that was, 4 or 5 years ago at this point. So it's been a fun ride.
Wow. That's so cool that you were able to ramp up that quickly, but obviously there is a need. And why do you think it is that moms struggle so much with the stuff? I mean, I think you touched on it a little bit, is just because you come with a lot of stuff, but could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's just something that, when we get pregnant, especially as a first-time mom, you are focusing so much on your pregnancy and then perhaps, what you want in the birth experience. And, there's so much focus on that and not really knowing like what's beyond having a newborn at home. And especially with all this stuff, because as you know, you have kids, right? I mean, this stuff, you just don't know what is coming and what you need at every stage in terms of, how much space you need to set up in your kitchen, for instance.
Right.
Or in their bedroom as their needs and, as they age and how they evolve and change with the physical stuff, right? And just building in those, routines and habits is just something that needs to change when you have kids, when your whole routines and habits are upended. Right? Yes. So it's a big job, and it's something that we just don't learn. And a lot of us are having kids after, a little bit older, not everyone, but it's your whole world is just different. Yeah. And it just takes a while to not only adapt to your new world, but also trying to incorporate, time for yourself and all that. So in a nutshell, I know I'm talking about a lot of things here, but in a nutshell, that's what I help people do. And what I want to talk about today is just realizing that there's not only physical clutter, but there's like mental stuff that we all are dealing with. And it's a big job. And it's not something that is easily, that comes easily, or that's learned. And we just have to kind of learn from each other after becoming parents, and no matter what age your kids are, really. So
right.
Never too late to get a handle on it.
The stuff that comes along with the kids, I mean, especially when they're, newborns, there's just a lot of gadgets that they require. I don't know if it's the right word, but come along with newborns. And then when you get into, like you mentioned, all the gift giving opportunities, you end up collecting more things. And it's really hard to, especially decide for your children, what makes sense to keep, what makes sense to go. And I think part of my problem too is you have less time. Purging for somebody else is not the easiest thing to do. And you've got all this mental clutter, like you mentioned, that gets in the way. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic in True You is because I feel like the stuff gets in the way of us being our true selves. And you have a quote on your website that says, when you dig into your relationship with stuff and really take a look at how you spend time, big shifts can happen. Can you elaborate on that one?
Sure. First I do want to address the whole newborn stuff thing. I mean, it's crazy. And I am working, with pregnant moms about, not only first-time moms, but even second-time moms, and just realizing, what really works for one child or for your friends. And it's like these must-haves may not work with your child or even your second one, because each child is so different. And so I really encourage people to hold off, especially, if any of our viewers are pregnant, of really buying a lot of things ahead of time when you don't even know what kind of kid you're going to get. But at the same time, really figuring it out on your own of what personally works for you and your family, and making some space, like physically, so that, you have some mental space. But yeah, that quotation on my website is, because it's not just about the stuff, really. Big shifts can happen because it's not just about the stuff. And it's not just about the Pinterest-worthy images of having a perfect closet. It's really about the function and, your mental space and how you spend your time. And, when you're, especially as a mom, you have so much happening and coming at you that I really encourage you to take a hard look of how much time you have to spend for yourself, right? And how much mental space you have to do something other than just focus on your kids, or to focus on responding to your family's whims and needs, or your household's. And when you make space for that, that's when the big shifts can happen. Is, you actually can rediscover perhaps, an old hobby, or maybe a new hobby, a new passion, and like get that spark back and really take time. And maybe you don't know what that is, but maybe just take time for yourself. Maybe 5 minutes a day is what I encourage people to start, and just, reconnecting with your true you, right? This is part of it. What you need to do is just recognize your needs, like in the moment, and try, if you can, to fulfill that. Maybe it's just you need to sit down for 5 minutes or read a book. And I think that's when big shifts can happen. And as you declutter your environment and your daily structure of how you spend your time, you can create more white space in your schedule to allow moments like that to happen. And even for your kids, it's modeling for your kids that mommy isn't always there to help you. So even moms can take a time out. I tell my kids all the time, I'm taking a 5-minute time out, and it's a good thing that I'm sitting down and reading a book, and I'll help you in 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
And then sometimes they figure it out on their own. And I know some moms that have, newborns, obviously, you can't.
It's a little bit harder than, yeah, for sure.
But maybe you can. Maybe you can leave them in their bassinet or their crib for an extra.
Or ask for help, right?
A minute or whatever it is, and build up to probably a 5 or 10 minute break for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then just creating more of that space in your day.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have less stuff to manage, then that can take place.
Yes.
That's why decluttering is really, it's a big job in itself.
Yes.
It can be a big job. But once it's done, and once you build in the habit changes in your day, and you think about your time in a different way,
mm-hmm.
these big shifts can happen. And people, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some good client testimonials. I think I had one client, who decided to start her own business. So that was a big thing. And that's kind of what I did too, actually.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, that's my passion, is helping others do this thing, and that's what I love spending my time doing. So
mm-hmm.
I know some people, I know this probably isn't a good example. I think in Marie Kondo's book, I remember when I first came across it, she said, some of my clients discovered that they didn't like their spouse and they got divorced. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's a good example, but that's an example of a big shift that can happen when
right.
you really get real with you and your relationship with stuff, and clear space and have time to think.
Yes, for sure. Having that pause, I think both in your time and just your mental capacity, can open your eyes to what's getting in your way. And two, for me especially, the amount of stuff, the physical clutter creates mental clutter for me, and it's stressful. I think there are different kinds of people. There are some people that it doesn't bother them at all, and there are some people who it, like myself, who the physical clutter creates mental clutter. But not just that, but things require upkeep, and they require your time to put it away, to clean it, to make your kids clean, whatever. So there's a stress that comes along with the things. And what I did like about Marie Kondo is the spark joy, because I feel like there are a lot of things that we hold on to because of fear. What if I need it someday? Or guilt. Oh, I spent so much money on that and I never used it. But sparking the joy, that really makes a difference, because you want things that lift in your home, that lift you up and don't feel like a burden.
For sure. And what she does is it switches the equation. So instead of looking at all your stuff, it's like, and what do you want to get rid of? You ask yourself what you want to keep. Mm-hmm. And just that simple question shift, you would actually, it's huge. It's really huge. And, like I mentioned, my family, my grandfather was actually an orphan in the Depression. And so that's where, kind of stemmed from him.
Oh, the holding on to the things.
Absolutely everything. And when he passed away, we found boxes of used napkins in his closet. It was like to that level. Because, you can use napkins like a third time or a fourth time. He just folded it. So,
oh my.
And so that's how I work with, my family, my clients, is I teach them to kind of, figure out, okay, this stuff for sure I'm keeping. This stuff probably not so much. And then this section in the middle, it's like, then you decide, do I want to keep this? Do I not? And so just making that shift, instead of what do I need to get rid of, it's like, what am I keeping? It's huge. It's really huge.
Mm-hmm. And then the spark joy thing, though, too. I think the one thing that she doesn't include, which I think is important to mention, especially for moms, is stuff might not spark joy, but you definitely use it. You know what I mean? And it's practical. So sometimes there are those gray area things that you need to hold on to because they're useful.
Like your breast pump or
right. Exactly.
But
yeah, breast pump
is not that you're gonna love it.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
I do want to touch on what you said about, some people thinking that they're not affected by clutter. And, I think I have to admit that I was in kind of that camp, and some people say like messy house is a happy house, or happy kids. And, I've really learned like there's a true subconscious effect of clutter, whether people want to admit it or not. And there was actually a study. So UCLA's Center for Everyday Lives and Families, so that's CELF, there's scientifically proved that women who live in a cluttered environment are likely to have high levels of cortisol, which is a stress-related hormone. And I'm not sure why it doesn't apply to men. I think that's really interesting, but it's proven for women. And from the Mayo Clinic, asking what is cortisol? So overexposure to cortisol can disrupt almost all of your body's processes and has been associated with an increased risk of anxiety, digestive problems, heart disease, and weight gain, among other issues. And so this is a real thing, and why, you might not think that having a messy closet is really affecting you, but when you open the closet, whether you know it or not, that the burden could be unconscious, right? Or and it's true and it's real. And if you clear a space, like if you have a messy kitchen table, just imagine it gone, or really physically like clear everything, and there's a calmness that will come for sure.
Amen. So, it's the best feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge, and it's real. So that's why I'm really so passionate about my work and getting results for people that are step by step.
Yeah. Can you walk through that? Because I think a lot of times we see decluttering is a very overwhelming process, and we are short on time anyway as busy moms. So what are some simple things that moms can do to start decluttering their space? I think you talked about it a little bit with the things you want to keep, but can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, and that's my special sauce really, is because I'm living it myself, and I've lived it. I mean, my older one is 7 now, so and I have 2 boys and that are young, and a third on the way actually. So
congrats.
Oh yeah, there's I'm really all about step by step. So and fitting in like even 25 minutes a night for maybe 3 nights a week. So, just really managing like super small chunks that you can do. And if you focus, then you can make huge strides. And I know some people teach, like Marie Kondo says, start in your closet. I know another person that says start in your bathroom. But for me, when I started with the toys, actually, because that was what was most overwhelming. Yes. And papers. So just trying to focus on one system at a time. And so I teach 12 systems actually in a step-by-step way. But really, for any mom that just wants to start, I have a download which we can link to. I think. It's called the 10 Simple Hacks to Get Your Family Organized. And these are like the 10 low-hanging fruit that I discovered in walking in all my clients' homes initially, that it's common to everyone that you can make really easy changes in these 10 areas and have like a really quick win. So getting some quick wins under your belt.
And you get some momentum that way.
Right. So one of them is creating a memory box.
I love my memory box. My daughter does too. She's like, can I put this in my memory box? I'm like, yes.
Nice.
Love it.
And one just maybe not, it might not be a memory box like forever, but like somewhere to catch all the artwork that comes in the door. So it has a place to go, because that's a lot of times like people tend to not know what to do with the artwork. Either they have to sneak it in the recycle bin, or it piles up somewhere. And then you have a box for it to go into, and then at the end of the school year or whatever, you can go through and pick your favorites. That's like a really simple, easy win, is to just have a box and have a home for things like that, where, you know, it tends to pile up. So, like I said, I have a download of 10 things that you can do now. But beyond that, it's really getting real with yourself of what are your top 3 priorities. It could be a room in your house. It could be a time of the day, like perhaps like bedtime is not your favorite, or maybe it's getting out the door in the morning, and really prioritizing your top 3 and just working on those, because you can set up yourself for success, for having a better morning, to getting out the door, or even a better bedtime routine with your physical space, and just like how you're managing it with your kids and trying to make it fun and not so much of a slog. So that's what I want to encourage people to do, is really kind of do an audit of your top 3 priorities, and just starting with one system at a time. And again, whether it's toys, or whether it's a time of day, or paperwork, or whatever.
Yeah. I also have that, you know, you feel like, oh, I need to spend the whole weekend doing this, and I just need to get it all clean. But the reality is that time will never come. And, you know, if you set the timer for 25 minutes or half an hour, and you just do it until the timer rings, you're going to slowly chip away at it, and then you'll start to see some progress. And one thing I wanted to add with the toys is, especially for me, because it was difficult to decide what my kids should and shouldn't keep, I took out the things that they weren't playing with as often, and I put them in a separate holding space, because maybe they would ask for it, but if they didn't, then I knew that was a safe thing to give away. And once you create more space, it's less chaotic for yourself, it's less chaotic for them. And two, with the artwork, that can be a big one. So what I do with that is I have a clothesline on one of my walls where I hang the stuff up, and then every quarter or so I'll go through and take pictures of some of my favorite ones, and then I put them also in a holding pen just in case the kids ask for it later. But having some sort of routine where you're consistently going through the things will help make it better. Now, that's not to say I have it all figured out, because it's still a source of stress for me. You know what I mean? My kids still make the house look like a mess, but I think if you're more consistent with keeping up with it, then it'll end up being calmer. And that's the thing that I haven't integrated it into my routine. And then it can, every so often, I'll be like, oh, there's too much stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we should talk.
Yes.
Because I have a whole program for toys, and you're so right. I mean, you know, one experiment you can try is taking away the stuff they do play with, and just leaving a couple things that they don't, and see if they engage with it or not.
Oh.
It might be that they're so overwhelmed with their favorite things, and that's one of the things I discovered as well. Is when my son was like 3, he only played with wheels or like trucks and cars.
Yeah.
We had so many, and once I limited them, we actually started playing with the puzzles, and it was really amazing. And so that's part of a program where I teach, where you represent 10 categories of play, representing all parts of early childhood development and their working brains. And then, you know, after a period of time, then you refresh the set, basically. So it's kind of a souped up toy rotation system based on science and early childhood principles. So
how cool.
Yeah, so that's something that you know, it's not for everyone, but we, you know, if you're interested, we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
But I love what you do with artwork, and just having a finite space, whether we have a clothesline as well.
Do you? Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe it's your refrigerator, but even getting your child involved, asking them, you know, when they come home with a pile of stuff, it's like, okay, first of all, what do you remember making? Did you make that? Right? Sometimes I don't even remember making half the things. And then from what they do remember, it's like, what are your favorites? Like, what do you want to put on the wall? And so I like getting them involved with the process and them, you know, having a little bit of ownership of what's wall worthy or not.
Yes, because I want to teach them. I mean, that's one of the most important things too, that I don't want them to be okay with having a cluttered house. I want to give them the tools so that they can maintain the space as well.
Yeah. And then as they come down, maybe that goes in the memory box, and anything that's not wall worthy, then, you know, you can non-guiltily recycle.
Yes.
Guilt-free, recycle guilt-free.
For sure.
But you might still have to hide that part because they still don't like
seeing their works of art in the garbage can or recycle bin, whatever. It sounds like your course has a lot of really interesting components to it. Do you want to give a couple more highlights or talk a little bit more about it?
Well, it's called Tame the Toys, and so that's just one of my signature programs. But I have like I mentioned, I like having systems and teaching people step by step. And so if your struggle is toys, you know, we can link to that as well.
For sure.
If you want. And then, but paperwork is another system I teach, and because sometimes, you know, not only it's like mail, but all the school papers and including artwork and having that as, you know, as a system. And once you have it in place, then, you know, I really teach in all my programs how, like, the science behind it and the habit changes that go into it.
I love that. You're the science nerd in me loves that.
And so, you know, how to evolve and change it as your family's needs change. So it's not something that, you know, you put in place now and 2 months later or a year later, it's back to the chaos. Like, you know, and it's like ingrained in you, like how to evolve the system. So that's my, I think I keep saying that, but that's my mantra is, you know, teaching you how to personalize it for you and your own space and to make it last.
Yeah, you're teaching us how to fish rather than feeding us, right?
For sure.
I love that. Any final tips before we close out?
I think that just taking time for yourself is really my take-home message. And I know, you know, your summit is of how to connect, you know, with your true you. And I'm a big proponent of doing that in terms of, you know, self-care is kind of a buzzword, but just taking 5 minutes for yourself daily. And that doesn't mean scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Like, put your phone down and sit with yourself for 5 minutes and, you know, just take a breather, and things can shift for you. And, you know, you'll realize that you don't have to do it all, right? It's tackling the unburdening yourself from the burden of moms and breaking out of that. So, and it starts with your physical and mental clutter. For sure.
So closing out, you may have answered this, but how do you connect to your true you?
Yes. So me personally, this is evolving, right? It's always changing, but, you know, really recognizing and being more in tune with what you need in that moment. And I learned this from a good friend of mine too. And I'm catching myself more, like, really doing this, saying, you know, I have to make dinner now, and, you know, we just are just rushing home from our busy day and there's so much to do, but recognizing it's like, I need to lay down for 5 minutes and actually doing that. So it's a game changer. And I encourage everyone to do that and, you know, take that feeling of overwhelm and try to flip it on its head by taking the couple minutes and planning out, okay, yeah, this is overwhelming. I can't do it all right now. But perhaps in this next week, I can carve out a time on my calendar on these 3 days, even like 20 minutes, and And also realizing one last thing is that, you know, to take breaks, to schedule breaks for yourself. So where you have whole nights off after the kids go to bed where you're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And do that.
That's okay. I mean, I think we don't give ourselves permission, and not necessarily just zoning out in front of the TV or scrolling social media or whatever, but just to, what do you actually need? You know, what does your soul need?
Yeah. And perhaps carving out like one night a week where you have, you know, a date with your spouse, like in your house, right? It's like, this is our time, like a random Wednesday night. This is our time to talk about. So you're not constantly, you know, doing other things. So that's what I would say is to really get intuitive, take what you need when you can, and schedule breaks so that you're more efficient in the times that you do carve out for getting stuff done. Yep.
Well stated. Great answer. Thanks again for being here, Sarah. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.